Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Galetz, and I'm a program facilitator working with the Regina District Industry Education Council and Sunwest School Division. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Rachelle Haddock. She's going to tell us about careers in environment and sustainability. Currently, Rachelle works at the University of Calgary. She's going to tell us how a small town girl from Rosetown, Saskatchewan got involved in this field. Before we start, just a reminder, the session is being recorded and will appear on the RDIEC YouTube channel for you or others to view in the future. We'd also like to request that any student who watches this session go to our website at www.rdiec.ca and complete the student survey that can be found on the website homepage. Completion of the survey gets your name in on a monthly draw for a $50 gift card. Again, the website is www.rdiec.ca. We'd like to welcome Rachelle and thank you so much for doing this, and we'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Kevin. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about my career. I had a lot of fun putting this presentation together, and I hope you find it both engaging and informative. I'm presenting to you from Calgary, Alberta, and I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, Kainai First Nations, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and the Stoney Nakoda, including the Chiniki, Bears Paw, and Wesley First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. I remember years ago reading a Globe and Mail article that spoke to the importance of looking to your career aspirations when you're really young for clues about what would make a meaningful career for you. At this time in your life, it is unlikely that you are influenced by the opinions of others and their perceptions of what is a good career. Thinking about your aspirations at a very young age, there are clues about what might be a good career for you. For example, if you wanted to be an artist when you were little, perhaps a role that requires creativity, like interior design, marketing, or graphic design could be a good fit. Of course, you could also be an artist too, because we certainly need artists. I loved animals from a very young age, especially turtles, and I desperately wanted to be a zookeeper. Looking back now, I can see for myself that this childhood desire translated into a career that focused on the environment. Through elementary school and high school, I remained very interested in the environment, and my career aspirations shifted to becoming a veterinarian, perhaps even a wildlife vet. And when I was 15, I reached a turning point. I had a horse named Shadow, and he had stopped eating for a few days. We hauled him into the veterinary medical center at the U of S for an examination. The vets determined he had hurt his neck and administered a painkiller intravenously. It had been a really stressful day for me. It was really hot out. I hadn't eaten very much food, and hauling my horse to the big city and observing him in pain had all piled up for me. I fainted at the first sight of blood, and according to my sister who was with me, there wasn't very much blood. I came to and I was seated on a stool with my head on a counter. I was totally mortified. This incident caused me to seriously consider my career trajectory. Prior to my fainting incident, my mom, who is a very wise woman, had set up a volunteer week at a vet clinic so I could start building up clinic hours and so that I could see if veterinary medicine was a fit for me. I made it through the week without fainting. However, I knew from the moment I walked into the clinic that being a vet wasn't for me. Both the smell of the antiseptic and seeing animals suffering was not how I had envisioned being a vet. I panicked. I was heading to grade 12 and I didn't know what I wanted to be anymore. My mom had requested information from a number of universities, as these were the pre-internet days. I was flipping through a university catalog and I landed on a program that really appealed to me. It was called a Bachelor of Science in Natural Resources Conservation. I applied and got in, and that moment of flipping through that career catalog, through that university catalog, really set me up onto the career path I will describe today. And looking back, I can say that this is an instance of fainting that was quite helpful. During my talk today, I will touch on my undergraduate degree and the jobs I had following my undergraduate training, which includes both working outside doing fieldwork and working inside doing a variety of other roles. Then I'll share a bit about my experience at graduate school and how I discovered that teaching was a surprise passion of mine. I will also share a bit about a rewarding role that I had that was focused on knowledge generation and translation. And then I will discuss my current work in the field of sustainability. I'll close off my talk with some concluding remarks. The degree I pursued was very innovative at the time, as it offered students a chance to learn about a wide range of areas relevant to the field of natural resources conservation. My degree program provided a multidisciplinary education focusing on ecology and conservation biology, biodiversity, geomatics, resource socioeconomics and policy, and land use planning and land stewardship. One of the wonderful parts of my program was that the final year of my degree involved a field school course that provided all of our coursework for an entire semester, all of our credits. We traveled to different biogeoclimatic zones in British Columbia, learned different field work techniques and used them, and worked together as teams on numerous projects that provided real-world experience we carried forward with us after graduation. One piece of advice I would offer to anyone listening is to take the time to really get to know your instructors, professors, and teaching assistants in whatever additional schooling you pursue. Most instructors, faculty, graduate students, they're engaged in really interesting work of their own, and there may be opportunities for you to get involved. This is a photo from a day of volunteer fieldwork that I did with my teaching assistant, Roger. He was doing his graduate research as part of the West Slopes Grizzly Bear Project. I joined him for a day in Glacier National Park during the summer of my third year at university. Here, Roger is using telemetry, radio telemetry, to see if any collared bears were in the area. His research focused on studying the importance of avalanche paths for grizzly bear dens. That day is one I won't forget, owing to the jungle gym hiking we did, crawling up steep slopes through dense vegetation, and marked my first ride in a helicopter as we were accessing some very remote terrain. After I completed my undergraduate degree, I spent a number of years doing fieldwork jobs. This photo was taken at a field camp where I lived for 2 summers. This particular photo was taken when we woke up in late May to a fresh snowfall. Being out in the elements is one of the best and most challenging aspects of fieldwork. So fieldwork can involve data collection for numerous purposes. Through fieldwork, you can contribute to scientific studies, capture baseline data, and engage in long-term monitoring, so looking for change over time. You get to work outside in all types of conditions, use diverse skills like navigation, first aid, species identification, and it enables you to work seasonally. My first job out of my undergraduate degree was a dream fieldwork job. I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time. My work focused on creating a vegetation monitoring program for a heli hiking and heli skiing company that operated on Crown lands in British Columbia. I stayed in their backcountry lodges and flew to my field sites where I set up a number of permanent study plots on the landscape. The study plots and the monitoring program that I helped to establish would enable the company to measure change to the vegetation over time in areas that they use for hiking, mountaineering, and lunch spots, so that they could be better stewards of these lands. I wrote a final report capturing the methodology and all of my findings for the company. On top of that, I got to work in some really spectacular landscapes and met many staff who have become treasured lifelong friends. When you do field work, this can be your office. It's a pretty nice office. Over the next couple of slides, I've included images from other field work I've completed in Alberta. Track identification can be a key skill for field work. Those are grizzly bear tracks on the right. And this is a grizzly bear captured by a remote camera that was used in a research project I worked on, which was looking to determine if recreation users were affecting wildlife movements in the region. So we had set up remote cameras all across our study area and captured many wonderful images like this one. I also had the opportunity to work as a land stewardship intern on a 30,000 acre working cattle ranch that was managed by the Nature Conservancy in the United States. Looking back, I think that this was one of my favorite jobs. I got to live and work on the ranch and assisted with ecological monitoring, controlling invasive weeds, assisting with education programs, fixing fence, hauling hay, and moving cattle. Here are a couple more images from that job following this one. This is the main ranch area. I lived in the house that's in the middle of the trees in the center of the image. Here's a shot of me moving some cows. And again, the yard at the ranch there. So working inside, following a suite of fieldwork jobs, I had a number of positions that involved working inside in natural resource conservation. So these were year-round jobs that still included still included field work, but the bulk of my time I spent inside an office. So in these types of roles, you might engage in writing reports, such as environmental assessments or baseline monitoring reports. I could be doing data management and analysis. Other jobs really focus in on geospatial analysis and mapping. Another type of work inside would be writing policy and or supporting the development of regulations. Fundraising can also be a big type of work that you do if you're working for a nonprofit, and business development if you're working for a consulting firm. And finally, you could have a role that focuses in on environmental education. You may be wondering who will hire you to do all this cool work. Potential employers include federal, provincial, and territorial and municipal government agencies, consulting firms, environmental nonprofit organizations such as the Nature Conservancy of Canada, Ducks Unlimited, and resource companies such as oil and gas companies, mines, utility companies, and other private companies such as the heli hiking company that I worked for. I had always wanted to go to graduate school, and I reached a point in my career where the jobs I wanted either preferred or required a master's degree. So I went back to school and did a graduate degree in environmental design with a focus on environmental science. I took a number of courses, including 2 more field school courses, which are depicted here. And a large portion of my time at graduate school was focused in on a thesis research project. My research focused on studying how recreation users, like hikers and people who ride quads, people who fish, perceived and valued a large region of public land in southwestern Alberta that was under increasing pressure from all kinds of recreation users, while also being used for forestry, grazing, oil and gas infrastructure, and mining. The region's also really critical for water provision to downstream communities like Lethbridge and for providing wildlife habitat. My research also looked at how recreation users would prefer to be involved in a planning process that would help to manage recreation use in the region. The map I've shared on the slide depicts my study area. You can see Fort Macleod on the right-hand side, and then the BC border is depicted in white along the left edge. One of the most challenging and exciting parts of engaging in graduate research is sharing it with others. This is a copy of one of the journal articles I wrote with my This is one of the journal articles I wrote with my thesis supervisor to share my findings and to contribute to the field of recreation land use planning. As a graduate student, you get to build upon past research and make your own personal contribution to advancing knowledge in your field, which is pretty rewarding. I was given the opportunity to work as a teaching assistant during my graduate degree, and I was pleasantly surprised to learn that I loved teaching. There were a number of workshop opportunities provided by my university for graduate students who wanted to improve their teaching skills. So I took them all. I took everyone I could. My interest in training enabled me to land a job as a sessional instructor at the Teaching and Learning Center, where I was then able to help other graduate students improve their teaching skills. This was really satisfying work because I loved helping other people to be the best instructors that they could be. And I knew how many students could potentially benefit from having better teachers. Following graduate school, I began working with a research institute that focused on generating new knowledge through environmental research and then translating that knowledge so it could be used by people who make decisions about landscape stewardship and management. These are some of my wonderful colleagues from that job. One of the nice things about working in a smaller organization is that your colleagues can really feel like family members. At this point in my career, my work became more focused on the people side of things. It became apparent to me that science wasn't enough to improve our stewardship of the environment. People needed to understand the research and to be engaged in how they could put it to work to be better stewards. The next couple of images, or this image and the next, capture a couple of the people I had the privilege of working with on diverse conservation projects. This is Pierre. He worked on a watershed restoration project involving beavers on his land. And then the next image you'll see involves a number of ranchers, government agency staff, and nonprofit staff who are working on private land conservation in southern Alberta. Now I'd like to share with you one specific project to give you a more detailed sense of the kind of work I did in knowledge translation. If you've driven through Banff National Park on the Trans-Canada Highway, you will have driven over and under a network of wildlife crossing structures like this one depicted here. One of my projects was to support the road ecology researchers who are studying the effectiveness of these crossing structures in Banff National Park. This project was called Highway Wilding. It was a 5-year, $1.6 million partnership project that included research and monitoring, communications, and project management components. My role was to help tell the story of the research to a number of audiences through communications products. But before I go on, I wish to take this opportunity to share with you that research has demonstrated these crossing structures are very effective at keeping both wildlife and people safe and enabling habitat to be connected across the highway. Further, economic analysis has demonstrated that these wildlife crossing structures are a cost-effective solution to the challenge of wildlife vehicle collisions. Next, I'm going to share with you some marvelous images captured by the research team through their use of remote cameras on this research project. This is an image of an elk at one of the culvert underpasses. A grizzly bear using one of the overpasses. A deer again in a culvert underpass. A cougar using an overpass. And finally, a black bear going underneath a bridge span. With regard to communication products, we created a website, which is called highwaywilding.org. I encourage you to check it out. It's archived to this day. Conference presentations and an infographic, which is what I'm sharing on the screen right now. One of my most favorite products was a documentary film entitled Highway Wilding. We worked with the filmmaker to create a documentary that was played at film festival screenings across the world. I will play the trailer for you now. You can watch the full 20-minute version for free on YouTube.
One of the big problems that we've had is that we have not been looking at the landscape like animals do.
In face of changing climate, global warming, wildlife are going to need to expand their distributions, and they're going to need structures to allow wildlife to get across these highways safely.
When you look at grizzly bear 122, throughout this summer, he crossed the Trans-Canada Highway at least 66 times. These crossing structures were part of his daily life.
We need to expand our thinking. We need to think not just about protected areas as we have in the past, but the connections in between.
If you hit within a kilometer over 3.2 deer annually, it's actually cost effective to mitigate with an underpass and fencing. So why aren't we doing this?
After a number of years at the Research Institute, I was looking for a challenge and career growth. I saw an opportunity on LinkedIn. It actually landed in my inbox through one of their email messages that combined my interest in teaching with my evolving interest in sustainability. It was at the University of Calgary in their Office of Sustainability. Now, some of you may be wondering, what the heck is sustainability? I can assure you that you are not alone. According to the Brundtland Commission, sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The sustainability compass, which is depicted on the screen, can be helpful for bringing this concept to life. There are 4 compass points that convey the breadth of what sustainability can encompass. North is nature and includes restoring, protecting, and living in accord with the laws of nature. East is economy and includes a prosperous economy that is viable, fair, and inclusive. South is society and includes societal connectedness, caring, equity, and engagement. And finally, West is for well-being, and it includes individual health, fulfillment, happiness, and well-being. So you can see that sustainability is a very broad concept. If you're interested in learning more about sustainability, I'd encourage you to check out the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. You can Google it and learn more about a global agenda to advance sustainability across the world to result in a more peaceful and prosperous society and a healthy environment. So again, that's the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. My first role at the office involved creating and running a large initiative that would provide experiential learning and applied research projects so that students, faculty, and staff could work together to advance sustainability on our campus. The idea was to treat the university campus as a big lab for sustainability research. For example, a recent project involved a graduate student researching how to reduce the amount of lab waste generated on our campus. This project involved working with our office, with waste and recycling, and environmental health and safety. His research findings are now being used by staff on campus to improve our operations. One of my favorite parts of this job was getting to know people across the university who are passionate about their work and studies and being able to support them in bringing their projects to life. About a year ago, I received a promotion and moved from my current role, moved from my past role into my current role, which is Manager of Sustainability Partnerships and Engagement. So what does our team do? The team I have the honor of leading works together to advance the university's sustainability vision, which is that the University of Calgary is a place where students become sustainability leaders with learning grounded in sustainability and research that helps solve social and environmental problems in our community and around the globe. Our office offers initiatives and programming to enable students, staff, faculty, and community members to engage with sustainability. This can include running events and volunteer programs, supporting other business units on campus with sustainability initiatives, writing grant applications, and more. So what does a manager do? As a manager, I work to support the team I lead with their work and their professional development. I work to develop collaborative partnerships to engage students, staff, faculty, and community members in sustainability. I give presentations and have the privilege of writing papers to share informations and learnings. Once again, here's another knowledge generation and translation piece. And finally, I engage in strategic planning to enable our team and office to best achieve our vision and goals. So thanks for listening to me speak about my career journey. In conclusion, I wish to reiterate or to stress that it's helpful to think about your earliest career aspirations for clues to guide your journey. Looking back now, I can't imagine being a zookeeper. And yet, I think the heart of my childhood desire had to do with the environment. And I've certainly been happy to have followed that as my career journey. Also really encourage you to try things out in advance. My mom's brilliant suggestion to job shadow at a vet clinic was such a good one. You don't necessarily need to go on job shadow. You could talk to people who have jobs similar to what you're considering exploring. Really encourage you to start talking to people and trying things out where you can. There are so many different types of employers in this sector. And, as demonstrated my career, there's really an ability to move between types of jobs. And I think as you continue to develop skill sets and knowledge throughout your career, that can help expedite that shift between different types of jobs. Something I found in my career journey is that the jobs I wanted often required a graduate degree. So you can think about that as far as planning out your career trajectory. I also have friends and colleagues who have had really wonderful careers with an undergraduate degree. So, it really depends on what you want to do. One of the interesting things about grad school is that it can enable you to explore how much you like pursuing research. There's certainly, you could pursue a career in academia as well, in environment and sustainability fields. I would encourage you to seek out new experiences along the way. When I took the chance to be a teaching assistant, it was really motivated by bringing in some extra income to help me as a graduate student. But through taking that opportunity, I discovered something that I really loved and that I continue to love to this day. And finally, I would share that the job market in this sector is continuously evolving. When I was entering into my undergraduate degree, I don't even think the fields of sustainability existed. Or I should say that I didn't know about it, and there weren't degrees focused in on it. And that's changing all the time. And I've heard through numerous sources that companies simply cannot find sustainability professionals to fill these positions fast enough. I have a good friend who was recently looking for work. She's a sustainability professional. And she had so many callbacks and landed a job recently with Amazon doing sustainability work. So in closing, I really wanted to thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about my career journey. I just spoke about myself for a very long time. So I really want to acknowledge and express my deep gratitude to all the people who've supported and helped me in so many ways, from elementary school teachers through to my colleagues today. People have helped me so much. And I hope that you have so many wonderful people to help you along your journey as well. Thanks again.
Excellent, Rachelle. I really enjoyed that. I don't know if I have so many questions as I have maybe takeaways from what you said. I think one thing you showed to students that a career evolves. It's not just that you just don't leave high school and here it is right in front of you. It's you probably didn't have a vision when you were in grade 12 that this is what you'd be doing today, but it's a lot of steps along the way and processes and it could have went different directions too, but this is the direction it took.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think back on my career, there are a lot of different turning points, and you know, it might be a reflection too of the type of person I am. I'm more of a generalist than necessarily someone who only wanted to study one thing and know everything I could about it. So I'm a bit of a dabbler, and I think that might be reflected in how my career journey unfolded. And I guess, you know, so that's something I would share with students who are listening, is that, you know, really treat it like a journey. And sometimes, you know, you have a journey plotted out on a map, and you might have taking a side road and it takes you to an even more exciting destination. So, you know, as much as you can, treat it like an adventure and enjoy every minute of it.
Yeah, I agree. Just a question about education. Like when you started, you said it's kind of growing in the field for sure. And I mean, environment sustainability, it's not going away anytime soon, and I don't think it should either. Are there more post-secondary options and programs available than let's say when you started looking?
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing how many new offerings are being issued every year. At the University of Calgary, we now have an embedded certificate in sustainability studies. So you can be pursuing a degree, let's say in geography, and you can tack on this certificate without any additional coursework. It's embedded into your learning journey. And when you walk across the stage at convocation, it's on your parchment. So there are lots of options to tack on sustainability training to your career training, whatever it might be. Or if you want to do something like I did and really choose a degree that's focused in on conservation or environment or sustainability, there are more and more degree programs being offered all the time. And also at the graduate level, I know recently Royal Roads University has started a climate leadership graduate program. And so these are programs that are emerging all the time, and I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like even I'm even aware of some diploma programs for students that maybe lead more to field work than some of the academic research, but
Yeah,
they're part of the research cog too. They're involved in that.
exactly. Yeah, and I know I have a colleague who she started off with a diploma in wildlife monitoring and really loved the work, and through it she got to know a number of academic researchers. She got engaged in their projects, and then she wanted to pursue an undergraduate degree and then a graduate degree. So having that diploma, trying out the work was a really great first step for her. And again, through taking opportunities, through networking, she was able to take her to the next level and really grow her career in that way. And like I said, there are lots of people I know who have technical backgrounds who really have made a career out of it. So it really depends on you and where your interests lie, and you know what else is happening in your life as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask a question. I know a student would ask this, so I might as well ask it for a student here. So in your field work, have you ever run across things like a grizzly bear and come face to face?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, I think, fun and also potentially scary part of field work is, encounters with wildlife. I have a strong memory when I was working on the heli hiking vegetation monitoring project. I was working by myself. I was working alongside a stream. So there were alders all around the stream, which is kind of an ideal place to have a run-in with a bear potentially, because you can't hear because of the running water. There's often a breeze going downstream, so they might not catch your scent. So I was quite on edge that I would have a bear encounter, and I'm working away. There was still snow along the banks, and I caught this brown blob out of my peripheral vision. And right away I thought, it's a bear. And it kind of took a breath and looked up, and it was this porcupine. And it was waddling to the edge of this creek, and there's this little tree at the edge, and it stopped. It took its paw up and pushed on the tree, and then paw down, paw up, pushed on it, and it pushed this little sapling down, so it created a bridge across this creek.
Oh.
And then it proceeded, and I have it's, at the time it was a film camera. So I'm trying to take photos of this porcupine, which just had made a bridge and was crossing a stream. And he got to the other side, the tree sprung back up and off he went. And so, seeing things like that definitely are memorable and exciting moments. I have been around bears in the backcountry for sure. I didn't talk about it in this presentation, but I worked for a horseback outfitter in Banff National Park and definitely saw bears from horseback. We had a bear coming into our camp at one point. Thankfully, I've never had a negative encounter with them, and there are lots of ways to be safe in bear country. The one project I mentioned where had that really colorful image of the grizzly bear. That one was pretty interesting because you could see all the animals that had been at the place where you had been and how close, because there's a time and date stamp on them. So you can see how many hours before you were there, that a grizzly bear had walked by. So, and the other thing I've heard other field biologists say is, they're out there and they're around you. And I mean, to me, that's one of the really appealing parts of the job, is being out there and being a part of that. And of course, you want to take all the possible precautions to keep both yourself safe and also the wildlife. You don't want to put whatever wildlife in a bad situation that might damage them in the long term. So
exactly. Thank you, Renette. Anyone? Mark?
Rachelle, honestly, you've done such a strategic outline of your career and your pathway, which I think answers a lot of questions for students that are going to be tuning into this recording. So thank you for taking the time and outlining it so well. And yeah, I think I'm good. Thanks,
Okay.
Kevin.
Thanks. Well, I just paused it, Rachelle. So
okay, great.